All right, let's dive into this one because the Dallas Cowboys might just be pulling off a repeat performance from last year's offseason, finding those under-the-radar, low-cost signings that could pay off way bigger than anyone expected. You remember the vibe from last season? A couple of shrewd moves that made us raise our eyebrows in a good way. Well, here we are again, and it's feeling like déjà vu credit where it's due. Will McClay, Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, the whole front office crew. They might have found two absolute gems for this defense, and we're already seeing flashes of what they could bring in training camp and the preseason. We're talking about moves that didn't break the bank, but could completely change the conversation around the Cowboys' defensive unit this year. The first name on the list is Kaiir Elam. This is a former first-round pick who came out of Florida with high expectations. But let's be real, his time with the Buffalo Bills didn't exactly go as planned. He struggled to find his footing, the scheme didn't seem to fit him, and it just never clicked. But Dallas saw an opportunity and pounced, pulling off a deal that cost them basically nothing, a day 3 pick swap. That's it. No huge gamble, no massive cap hit. Just a calculated move that, if it works out, could go down as one of the sneakiest steals in recent Cowboys history. Now, what's been impressive is how quickly Elam seems to have settled in since landing in Dallas. Sometimes a player just needs that change of scenery, a reset button to get back to what made them special in the first place. In training camp, Elam has been physical, confident, and consistent, not just showing flashes, but stringing together solid days of work. And when Darren Bland missed time, Elam stepped up as the clear number 1 corner. That's not the kind of responsibility you hand to someone unless they've earned the trust of the coaching staff. This isn't about him coming in and suddenly turning into Deion Sanders. The Cowboys don't need him to be a superstar. They need him to be reliable, to hold his own on the outside, to bring stability to a secondary that's had its share of injury issues and inconsistent play. If Elam can deliver even average starter production, it's already a win given what Dallas paid to get him. And if he can be better than Bossman Fat, well, that's icing on the cake. Coming out of college, Elam had the tools, size, speed, ball skills to be one of the top corners in the league. And let's not forget, he was ranked as the 4th best corner in his draft class by plenty of analysts, including the Cowboys' own scouts. He hasn't lost that physical ability. It's been about putting it all together mentally and regaining confidence. That's why this situation in Dallas feels different. He's getting reps, he's being trusted, and he's surrounded by a defensive coaching staff that understands how to put players in positions to succeed. And for a cornerback, confidence is everything. This is a position where you have to believe you're better than the guy across from you every single snap, even if you just got beat on the last play. That mental toughness, that swagger without slipping into arrogance, is a tricky balance. But right now, Elam's showing signs that he's finding it again. The other piece of this puzzle is rookie pass rusher Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, a second-round pick who some scouts thought had late first-round potential. The Cowboys clearly had him high on their board, not just as a depth piece, but as someone who could develop into a cornerstone of the pass rush. At Boston College, Ezeraku was a force, racking up 16.5 sacks and 60 total pressures in his final season. That's not just production, that's dominance, especially in the ACC, where offensive tackles are often seasoned veterans ready for the NFL. His first training camp in Dallas? Solid. Impactful. The flashes are there, and he's already showing he can set the edge against the run, which is often the hardest part for young pass rushers to master early in their careers. Against the Rams in preseason action, Ezeraku played just 17 snaps, but still managed to make his presence felt. The speed off the edge, the hand usage, the willingness to crash down and run defense. All signs of a guy who isn't just here to be a situational pass rusher. The challenge for him now is to lock down that signature move, that go-to weapon he can lean on when one-on-one with an offensive tackle. The physical gifts are there, good bend, explosive first step, the kind of frame that makes offensive coordinators nervous. What Dallas has to do is help him put it all together. This isn't just about year 1 impact, though I think he can provide some of that. Micah Parsons is always going to draw the bulk of attention from opposing offensive lines, and that creates a perfect opportunity for a young edge like Ezeraku to win those one-on-one matchups. If he can rotate and effectively with guys like Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, and the rest of the crew, his sack numbers could quietly climb. And when you project long-term, he's got shades of Harold Landry, another Boston College product, who took a few years to hit his stride, but eventually became a consistent 9 to 10 sack player in the NFL. If Ezeraku follows a similar trajectory, the Cowboys could have landed one of the steals of the draft at pick number 44. The thing that stands out about both Elam and Ezeraku is the value. These weren't moves where the Cowboys mortgaged the future. They didn't have to trade away premium draft capital, and they didn't have to hand out monster contracts. These were smart, calculated acquisitions designed to add depth, competition, and upside to the defense. And that's the type of roster building that can push a team from good to great. We've seen what happens when Dallas hits on these kinds of moves before. Think about how the additions of guys like Malik Hooker or Jaron Kearse reshaped the secondary. Now imagine adding a rejuvenated former first-round corner and a hungry rookie pass rusher into that mix. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. Elam still has to prove that the flashes we're seeing in camp translate to live NFL games that matter in the standings. Ezeraku will have to adjust to the speed and physicality of the pro game while carving out a role on a defense loaded with pass-rushing talent. But the early signs are promising, and the cost to acquire both players makes this feel like a no-lose situation for Dallas. If they hit, huge win. If they don't, the Cowboys move on without having sacrificed major assets. Right now, it feels like the Cowboys front office understood exactly where the defense needed a boost. The secondary needed stability and competition on the outside. The pass rush needed another young weapon who could grow into a major contributor. They addressed both without overreaching, without overpaying, and without giving away flexibility for future roster moves. That's how good teams stay competitive year after year. And maybe, just maybe, when we look back at this offseason in a year or two, we'll be talking about Khair Elam and Donovan Ezeraku as two of the smartest, most efficient pickups of the Cowboys' modern era. The kind of moves that don't always grab national headlines in March, but end up being difference makers in December and January. All right, let's keep building on this because the deeper you dig into these two acquisitions, the more you realize just how quietly important they could be for the Cowboys' 2025 campaign. Both Khair Elam and Donovan Ezeraku bring something the defense desperately needs, but in completely different ways. Elam is about stability and experience, even if it's been a bumpy road to this point, and Ezeraku is about raw potential and energy. Together, they represent two sides of the same coin: the immediate need to patch holes and a long-term vision to keep this defense dangerous for years to come. Let's start with Elam's situation in more detail. This is a guy who, not too long ago, was considered one of the most promising cornerbacks in the country. His size, length, and athletic profile were exactly what NFL teams covet. And yet, in Buffalo, he never became the shutdown presence many thought he could be. Whether it was scheme fit, inconsistent playing time, or the mental toll of early struggles, things just didn't click. But here's the thing about cornerbacks: they often take time. Not every player comes into the league and dominates from day one. The learning curve is steep, the competition is elite, and one or two bad games can snowball if a player starts doubting himself. In Dallas, Elam has a chance to hit the reset button, and it feels like he's grabbing that opportunity with both hands. One of the telling signs in camp has been how the coaching staff trusts him in matchups against the Cowboys' top receivers. We're talking about lining up against guys who can burn you deep, who can win at the line, who can create separation with elite route running. Elam isn't just holding his own, he's competing. The physicality that was one of his calling cards in college is showing up again. He's using his length to disrupt passing lanes, and he's not shying away from contact at the catch point. That confidence can spread quickly in a secondary. When one corner is playing with swagger, it frees up others to take calculated risks, and it gives the defensive coordinator more flexibility to dial up aggressive looks. But beyond the highlight plays, it's the little things that matter. Footwork, closing speed, recovery after getting beat on a release. These are the traits that separate a corner who flashes in camp from one who can start and hold his ground in meaningful games. Elam is starting to check those boxes, and considering the Cowboys essentially got him for the price of a late-round flyer, the value is absurd. Imagine if he locks down the CB2 role next to Bland until Trayvon Diggs is fully healthy. That's not just filling a gap. That's giving Dan Quinn the ability to mix and match coverages without constantly worrying about one side of the field being a target. Now, shifting over to Ezraku, the more I think about his fit in Dallas, the more I like it. The Cowboys already have a star pass rusher in Micah Parsons, a high-motor veteran in Dante Fowler, and a rotation of young, athletic edges. What they didn't have before the draft was a rookie who could bring immediate juice while also having the ceiling to develop into a true double-digit sack guy. Ezraku checks both boxes. The fact that he was still there at pick 44 feels like a stroke of luck, and Dallas didn't hesitate. His college production tells you he knows how to get to the quarterback, but what jumps out even more is how well-rounded he is for a young edge defender. A lot of rookies with big sack numbers come into the league as one-trick ponies, speed rushers who get swallowed up in the run game, or power guys who can't bend around the edge. Ezraku is already showing he can play with balance. He's not just attacking upfield every snap. He's setting the edge, reading plays, and staying disciplined when the offense tries to bait him with misdirection. That kind of maturity is rare for someone coming straight out of college, and it's exactly what keeps a rookie on the field instead of just being a situational pass rusher. And here's where the fit gets interesting. Because Parsons draws so much attention, whoever lines up opposite him is often going to see single blocking. That's a dream scenario for a player like Ezraku who thrives on one-on-one opportunities. It also means his rookie year production might surprise people. Even if he doesn't lead the team in sacks, he could rack up pressures and quarterback hits that make life miserable for opposing offenses. And pressures, as any defensive coach will tell you, are just as valuable as sacks in disrupting timing and forcing bad throws. The long-term projection is where this gets even more exciting. Think about the defensive lines that dominate in the postseason. They're deep, they're versatile, and they can rotate fresh legs onto the field without losing production. If Ezraku develops the way the Cowboys think he can, he and Parsons could become one of those edge duos that offenses have to game plan around every single week. Add in the possibility of a healthy Diggs and a confident Elam in the secondary, and suddenly you've got a defense that can take away first reads and get home with 4 rushers. That's the recipe for a championship-level unit. Of course, the real test for both players will come when the regular season starts and the stakes get higher. For Elam, it'll be about staying consistent and proving that the mental reset he's found in Dallas can withstand the inevitable ups and downs of the season. For Ezraku, it'll be about adjusting to the grind of the NFL, where every offensive tackle is big, strong, and technically sound. But that's where the Cowboys' defensive culture comes into play. This is a unit built on competition, on making every rep count, and on holding each other accountable. Veterans like DeMarcus Lawrence and Stephon Gilmore have set the tone for years, and those habits rub off on new guys quickly. It's also worth noting that both of these additions fit into the larger pattern of how Dallas has been building its roster lately. They've moved away from the splashy, big-name free agent signings and focused on calculated trades, draft picks, and reclamation projects. It's not always flashy, but it works when the scouting department and coaching staff are in sync. You don't have to win the offseason headlines to win games. You just have to find players who can contribute, fit your scheme, and grow into bigger roles. Elam and Ezraku check those boxes, and they do it without putting strain on the salary cap. Another layer to this is the competition it creates. When Elam comes in and plays well, it pushes the other corners to step up. Nobody's spot is safe, and that kind of environment brings out the best in players. The same goes for Ezraku. Every rep he wins in practice pushes the veterans ahead of him to fight harder for their snaps. It's an iron sharpens iron mentality that you need if you're going to compete deep into January. The NFL world woke up to a jolt of speculation after whispers began circulating late last night. Multiple sources, some close to the front offices involved, claimed the long-discussed trade between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Jets involving HAASON REDDICK has finally materialized. While no official press release has been issued by either team, insiders insist that the framework of the deal was agreed upon during a late-evening conference call between executives. According to these reports, REDDICK, known for his explosive pass-rushing ability and relentless motor, is packing his bags for Arlington, ready to bring his Pro Bowl pedigree to a Dallas defensive unit already stacked with talent. Rumors suggest the Cowboys parted with a package of mid-round draft picks, possibly including conditional terms based on REDDICK snap counts and sack totals in the upcoming season. The Jets, in turn, are said to be looking to reload their roster with younger, cost-controlled talent through the draft, signaling a shift in strategy that could prioritize long-term flexibility over short-term star power. Though nothing is carved in stone, the murmurs have grown too loud to ignore, and Cowboys fans are already buzzing with anticipation of what this could mean for their Super Bowl aspirations. If these reports hold true, the move could reshape the Cowboys' defensive identity in ways few could have predicted just weeks ago. REDDICK's arrival would not only provide an additional edge-rushing threat opposite Micah Parsons, but could also unlock more creative blitz packages for defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. Observers point out that while Dallas already boasts one of the league's most aggressive front sevens, the combination of Parsons and REDDICK could be nightmarish for opposing quarterbacks, forcing offenses to adjust protections on every snap. For the Jets, letting go of a proven pass rusher like REDDICK would certainly raise eyebrows, yet some insiders suggest this decision has been brewing since training camp. The front office may have been hesitant to commit to a long-term, high-dollar extension, especially given their pressing needs at other positions. If so, moving REDDICK now could be a calculated play to maximize his trade value before the market shifts. Of course, with no official confirmation, it's equally possible this flurry of chatter is the product of strategic leaks designed to gauge public reaction before a final decision is made. In the Cowboys' locker room, the speculation has reportedly already sparked conversations among players, with some veterans allegedly expressing excitement at the prospect of lining up alongside REDDICK. Sources close to several starters claim the news was met with cautious optimism, as they understand the business side of the game can shift dynamics quickly. Adding a player of REDDICK's caliber, however, could be seen as an unmistakable signal from Jerry Jones that Dallas is all in for the coming season. For a franchise that hasn't hoisted the Lombardi Trophy in nearly 3 decades, bold moves like this often resonate deeply with both fans and players. Meanwhile, Jets insiders suggest the locker room reaction in New York could be mixed. Disappointment at losing a top performer tempered by the understanding that the front office is seeking long-term stability. The whispers also hint that the Jets may already be targeting a replacement in the upcoming draft, possibly someone younger and cheaper who could be molded into the team's defensive scheme over the next several seasons, ensuring the transition isn't as jarring as it might appear from the outside. The media frenzy surrounding this rumored trade has only amplified since early morning talk shows picked up the story. Sports analysts have begun breaking down hypothetical scenarios in which REDDICK's presence could directly tilt critical matchups in Dallas's favor, particularly against NFC rivals like the Philadelphia Eagles and San Francisco 49ers. His speed off the edge and ability to collapse the pocket from multiple alignments could prove decisive in games where mere fractions of a second determine whether a play succeeds or fails. On the Jets side, the potential draft capital gain from this transaction could open doors to multiple roster improvements, giving them the flexibility to address both offensive line depth and secondary reinforcements. Some analysts speculate this move could be part of a broader strategy to surround quarterback Aaron Rodgers with more reliable protection, indirectly improving the team's offensive efficiency. However, skeptics caution that losing a defensive cornerstone might leave the Jets vulnerable in shootout scenarios, putting even more pressure on their offense to produce consistently. Whether this trade becomes a stroke of genius or a cautionary tale remains, for now, an unanswered question hanging over both franchises. Until the official word comes down from the league offices, fans are left to navigate the swirling vortex of rumors, anonymous quotes, and supposed insider leaks. Social media has already erupted, with Cowboys supporters creating mock-up images of Reddick in a navy and silver jersey, while Jets fans debate whether the return package will be worth the defensive void his departure creates. Some commentators believe the timing of this leak is no accident, coming just before a pivotal stretch in both teams' off-season programs. It may be a way for decision-makers to observe the public temperature before committing ink to paper. Others argue that the sheer specificity of the reported details, the pick conditions, the player's travel schedule, even speculation about his introductory press conference, makes it unlikely this is pure fabrication. As it stands, the situation has all the hallmarks of a blockbuster trade in the making. High stakes, headline-worthy names, and enough uncertainty to keep everyone guessing. Until the ink is dry and the press conference lights flash on, the Reddick to Cowboy saga will remain one of the off-season's most tantalizing storylines, balancing somewhere between confirmed fact and carefully crafted speculation. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.